Welcome back to CFO Weekly, where we're talking with financial leaders about how to build efficiency in their teams, create time for strategy, and ultimately get results. With your host, Megan Weiss. Let's jump right in.
Today, my guest is David Butler. David is a licensed professional counselor who specializes in anxiety, depression, and relationships. David, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Ms. Weiss. I appreciate you inviting me here to speak about a very important topic.
So today our topic isn't specific to business, but impacts all of us nonetheless. Today we're talking about surviving and thriving in isolation. With the holidays here and our country still experiencing lockdowns and social distancing due to the pandemic, this topic feels particularly relevant. So David, you've been a mental health professional for 25 years. Tell me how 2020 compares to previous years.
This year, we've seen increased request and demand for mental health services in all aspects of mental health, particularly people trying to access therapy services. This year has promoted telehealth services, which previously were not really utilized that much, mainly due to quarantining or self-isolation. There's been a considerable amount of increased depression and anxiety, as well as fear about, the effects of COVID-19, the fear of loss of loved ones or someone becoming ill themselves, the economic impact, and how that's impacted families, inability to work, families being cooped up in the same house for extended periods of time, disruption of their daily routine or their lives in general, the ability to take part in leisure activities and sports leagues, gyms, the ability to go into a workplace and to, be able to socialize and know your fellow employees at the water cooler.
So this question isn't specific to COVID, but I feel like it sets us up for how we entered 2020. And I feel like it's an interesting question. So as a society, we've been becoming more and more detached in recent years, even prior to the pandemic. You go to a restaurant and you see a table full of people engaged with their phones rather than one another. So aren't human beings social creatures? And why do you think we've been disconnecting from life and each other in the past 1 to 2 decades?
I don't think anyone would deny that the, invention of the internet and it leading to social media outlets, people are turning more and more to these social media apps such as Facebook or Twitter, where you can have basically a window into someone else's life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And, back before the invention of the internet and social media, people would pick up the telephone and call. They were active in community organization and groups, and that's how they learned about the things going on in other people's lives. And now we have a constant feed of, people's activities and what they're involved in.
So speaking of disconnecting, the pandemic has obviously taken this to a whole new level. So what advice would you offer for people who miss going into an office every day and who are now feeling isolated and alone?
That's a really good question. I know many organizations have turned to applications like Microsoft Teams or other intra-office chat rooms to stay connected, to ask business questions. I would also recommend, possibility of office newsletter for employees to share personal interests and activities and things going on in their own personal lives, as well as managers scheduling routine check-ins or having team meetings where team members can interact and, stay connected in that way.
Along those same lines, I've also heard of people doing remote or Zoom happy hours, which I think is a fun and unique idea. So now that we're blending work and home, how can people disassociate the two and leave work behind at the end of the day?
With many of the clients that I've been working with, that is a really big challenge for them because previously, a 30-minute or hour commute would delineate the workday from home life. And even though many people have more time now because the commute has been cut out of their daily routine, they still seem to have an obligation or a feeling like they have to produce, and it makes it difficult for them to start their evening. With the clients that I have that are having difficulty in this area, I recommend scheduling, afternoon workouts or some type of activity at the end of their workday where it forces them to have that break. The other thing is that having meetings or dinners immediately following work helps the clients gravitate toward family or friends and get their mind off of the workday.
So it sounds like maybe setting up a routine where you end your day, maybe spending some time with your family and maybe making dinner together, or like you said, scheduling a workout, which I've always found to be a great end of any day, helps me personally to kind of wind down and forget about work and just think about myself for 30 minutes to an hour a day. So feelings of loneliness can get amplified this time of year. With Thanksgiving just passed and the holidays approaching, people have been adjusting their plans to avoid family and friends rather than coming together to celebrate. So how can we stay connected with family and friends remotely?
I think that's one benefit of technology that we have now and social media is being able to learn about our family and friends, what's going on in their lives, how they're enduring the pandemic, how they're coping and managing with social isolation. But even the traditional writing of letters or sending cards through the mail might be a good way to connect. Zoom calls, over the holidays, we had a family member that had a Zoom call with several different family members from around the country, and just being able to connect during the holidays and special occasions in that way. And of course, there's the possibility of meeting with family or friends in a outdoor space where you can socially distance and keep the space between the two of you.
Yeah, and while getting fresh air, and I think that's a great idea. So, of course, the pandemic causes many people a lot of fear and anxiety. How do you recommend people deal with those types of feelings?
One way to deal with the fears is to talk about them with family members or friends, just to get your feelings out there. Other possibilities include journaling, going to therapy, limiting your exposure to news sources or social media that constantly puts a feed out there about things that might potentially create fear and anxiety in people. Meditation, prayer, breathing exercises, doing activities that you enjoy, your hobbies or crafts, arts, working a puzzle, things like that at home to keep your mind busy, as well as, a daily workout, some type of a routine, going for a walk. If you have pets at home, spending time with your pets.
I know this isn't always the case, but historically, women have been the main caregivers for children. With many children still in virtual learning, how can women manage the stresses of both work and home?
I think that's a great question. Also, many women are faced with the challenges of taking care of one or more children while providing an education for their children with remote learning, as well as trying to work in between and juggling in that stress. Just taking a little bit of time each day, whether it be 30 minutes in the morning or 30 minutes in the evening, carving out part of your day to take a warm bath, read a book, just sit quietly and think. And I know it's not possible for all women, but, if there's a husband or a significant other in the household or family or friends that you can contact to maybe watch the children for an hour a week or at some point during the week so that you can take that time out for your stress.
I know when my own children were in the virtual learning environments, I felt like not only the usual stresses of being a working mother, but also trying to be the cafeteria lady, the IT help desk, and the classroom monitor. I know I had a lot of stressful days during those months. So yes, I can definitely appreciate the advice of just finding a few minutes, even if it's just a few minutes every day, to reset your mind and do something good for yourself. I think there's a lot of benefit to that. And anything that benefits a mother benefits her children and the entire family. So I think it's very important to do that. And speaking of children, how are you seeing the pandemic and isolation affect children? What can we do to help our children through these unprecedented times?
So many children right now are faced with, real life fears that they may never have experienced before. Stress related to potentially a family member or a friend or someone that's close to them becoming ill or infected, or in fact, becoming infected themselves, and what may result. Also, adverse economic impacts, such as, not being able to provide for basic needs, new rules, changes in their routine for those children that can go to school, wearing a mask throughout the day and, constantly being reminded to socially distance, the potential stigma of becoming infected themselves and being exposed to the virus, where they, may have to isolate at home while their classmates are still in class. And then when they return, just dealing with other children, possibly stigmatizing them. Increased tension in relationships and at home, and potentially domestic violence due to household confinement, or spending more time with other children in the home when they're normally separated during the day. Their exposure to intense media coverage of the pandemic, or fallout from the pandemic, and how long the pandemic may last. I've seen a lot of increased anxiety, even to the point of having panic attacks in children.
So what advice do you give your clients and the children you see to help them cope with all of these stresses?
So the children that I work with, we work on different exercises and to reduce anxiety, we talk about their fears, what their concerns are, help identify supports in their life to help them manage the stress and give them an outlet of someone to go to, on a daily basis, as well as helping to keep them connected with their peers to the extent possible through, chat or text messaging, online gaming, and other avenues for remaining connected to their peer group.
So how can we know if someone is seriously struggling, whether it's someone in our family or maybe a team member at work? I mean, there's people out there right now who are having a really difficult time with all of this. So how do we identify those people that are in trouble?
I think the first thing you have to do is think about the people in your life, the people and who potentially may be struggling because they live alone, or they don't have a big social support network. But particularly those that are angry, maybe have increased anxiety, that maybe lack coping skills, people that are depressed, hopeless. When of someone that's had an increase in alcohol or drug use, or is reporting thoughts of harming themselves, or that they feel suicidal, they may lose interest or cut off communication with you. Those are some of the main warning signs. People that indicate that they're having problems adjusting to life, as it is now.
And for those people who feel like they need help, where can they turn?
Well, for those that are in immediate, desperate need, for example, someone that's suicidal or talking about harming themselves, obviously 911 would be the best option. There is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. That number is 1-800-273-TALK. It's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week crisis line. There are applications in the App Store for Apple and also for Android. Talkspace is one, and BetterHelp. They're online applications where you can have a licensed therapist that you can talk with. It is based on a subscription. Reaching out to a therapist or some type of local nonprofit in your area seeking therapy. Many therapists are doing online therapy or therapy via some type of app to make it more accessible.
David, thank you so much for joining me today and helping us cope with the anxiety and depression associated with isolation.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. If this doesn't impact us personally, certainly we all know someone who's struggling with it right now. So thank you for sharing your advice. I've enjoyed today's discussion, and I hope our guests have as well. To all of our listeners, please tune in next week. And until then, take care of yourselves.
If you're ready to boost efficiency and streamline your accounting processes at significant cost savings, it's time to talk with Personiv. Their people-powered solutions have transformed the delivery of back-office tasks and general accounting functions for decades, partnering with clients to provide everything from accounts payable to payroll services. See what Personiv can do for you by visiting personiv.com.
You've been listening to CFO Weekly, presented by Personiv. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to hear all of our episodes. Want to learn more? Check out personiv.com. Thanks for listening.